The morning formation at Fort Bragg was disciplined silence punctuated by boot strikes on asphalt. Rows of soldiers stood at attention beneath a sky still bruised with dawn, their breath visible in the November cold. Among them, Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves stood with her Belgian Malinois Valor seated perfectly at her left heel. The dog's ears were forward, alert but calm, a mirror of the handler who'd raised him from 8 weeks old. Maya had returned from deployment 6 months earlier. Afghanistan had left her with a purple heart, chronic migraines, and post-traumatic stress that arrived without warning. Sometimes in dreams, sometimes in the middle of a briefing when the fluorescent lights hummed too loud. Valor wasn't just her partner. He was her tether to reality when her mind tried to pull her back to Kandahar. But this morning, someone on base had decided that tether needed to be cut. Commander Douglas Harmon was a career officer who wore his rank like armor and his disdain for anything he considered soft, even more visibly. He'd made his opinion known in staff meetings. Service dogs for PTSD were a crutch, a liability, a sign that standards were slipping. When Maya had been assigned to his training battalion as an instructor, the tension became immediate. What no one expected was how far he would go to prove his point. That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. Chapter 1. The sun hadn't cleared the tree line when Commander Harmon's voice cut through morning formation like a blade. Staff Sergeant Reeves, front and center. Maya's heart rate didn't change. She'd been called out before. Inspections, critiques, the usual power plays. She stepped forward with Valor at her side, his paws silent on the pavement. The dog sensed her calm and maintained it. Harmon stood on the platform with his hands behind his back, his uniform crisp enough to cut glass. Behind him, the American flag moved in slow wind. 200 soldiers watched. "Your animal," Harmon said, not looking at Valor, "is a distraction to unit cohesion." Maya kept her eyes forward. "Sir, Valor is a certified service dog. His presence is authorized under—" "I didn't ask for a regulation recital, Staff Sergeant." Harmon descended the steps slowly, deliberately. "I'm telling you that starting today, dogs are not permitted in training operations under my command." The silence that followed was absolute. Maya's jaw tightened. "Sir, with respect, that contradicts base policy and—" "Are you questioning my authority?" "No, sir. I'm clarifying the conflict between your order and established—" "Dismissed. Leave the dog in the kennel. Report to the obstacle course in 15 minutes. Maya didn't move. Valor's tail twitched once, the only sign of tension. "Sir, Valor is medical equipment. Removing him from my care during duty hours requires documentation from my psychiatrist and—" Harmon's face flushed. "You will follow my order, Staff Sergeant, or I will have that animal removed permanently." The word permanently hung in the air like gunpowder. Maya's voice stayed level. "Understood, sir." She saluted. Harmon returned it with visible irritation. Maya turned, Valor moving with her in perfect sync, and walked toward the barracks. Every soldier in formation tracked her movement with their eyes, saying nothing. Inside the empty corridor, Maya pressed her palm against the cool concrete wall and let herself breathe. Valor leaned against her leg. 70 pounds of steady pressure, grounding her before the panic could climb her spine. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're okay." But she knew this wasn't over. Chapter 2. The kennel facility sat at the edge of base, a low-slung building that smelled of disinfectant and cedar shavings. Maya had never left Valor here, not once. His crate was in her quarters, his food bowl next to hers in the mess hall when regulations allowed. He slept at the foot of her bed and woke her when the nightmares started. Now she stood outside the chain-link runs, watching him through the fence. Valor sat perfectly still, eyes locked on her, waiting. "He'll be fine, Staff Sergeant." Maya turned. Corporal Liam Cross stood a few feet away, holding a clipboard. He was one of the kennel staff, young, capable, and visibly uncomfortable. "You don't have to lie," Maya said quietly. "I'm not. He's trained. He'll handle it." Cross hesitated. "But this isn't right." Maya looked at him. Cross was risking a reprimand just by saying it. "I filed a complaint with the base JAG office," Maya said. "They're reviewing it." "How long?" "Could be days, could be weeks." Cross nodded slowly. "We'll take care of him, I promise." Maya believed him, but that wasn't the point. She pressed her fingers against the fence. Valor stood and approached, touching his nose to her knuckles through the wire. For 5 seconds, neither moved. "Good boy," she whispered. "Stay." Then she turned and walked toward the obstacle course, feeling the absence like a missing limb. Chapter 3. The training grounds were a sprawl of mud, rope walls and tire runs. 70 soldiers stood in loose formation, stretching and joking in the early light. When Maya arrived, the joke stopped. Commander Harmon was already there, stopwatch in hand. "Staff Sergeant Reeves, how generous of you to join us." "Sir." "You'll run point on the wall climb demonstration. Show these recruits how it's done." It was a test. Everyone knew it. Maya moved to the base of the 12-foot wall, planted her boots and launched herself upward. Her fingers caught the top edge, arms pulling her weight with practiced efficiency. She swung one leg over, dropped to the far side, and landed in a crouch. Clean. Textbook. "Again," Harmon said. She ran it again, and again. By the 5th repetition, her shoulders were burning, and sweat soaked through her undershirt. Harmon watched with his arms crossed, expression unreadable. "Adequate," he said finally. "Fall in." Maya rejoined the formation, breathing hard. Beside her, a private she'd trained 2 months ago, Davis, 20 years old, and still adjusting to military life, whispered without moving his lips. "That was bullshit, Staff Sergeant." Maya said nothing, but she appreciated it. The rest of the session was standard drills and conditioning. Harmon circled like a hawk, correcting form and barking cadence, but his eyes kept finding Maya, waiting for her to falter. She didn't. When formation finally broke for chow, Maya walked toward the mess hall with the rest of her unit. Halfway there, her phone buzzed. A text from Corporal Cross. "Valor's pacing. Won't eat. Thought you should know." Maya stopped walking. "Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach." Chapter 4. The kennel was quiet when Maya arrived during her lunch break. Most handlers were at the range. She found Cross outside Valor's run, crouched low and speaking softly. "He won't settle," Cross said when he saw her. "Keeps going to the gate." Maya knelt by the fence. Valor immediately came to her, whining low in his throat, a sound she'd only heard twice before, both times in combat zones when mortars fell close. "Hey, buddy! I'm here!" Valor pressed against the chain link so hard it rattled. "I can let you in for a few minutes," Cross offered. "Technically against protocol, but..." "No." Maya shook her head. "If Harmon finds out, you'll take the heat. I'm not putting that on you." Cross looked like he wanted to argue, but he nodded. Maya stayed there for 10 minutes, talking to Valor through the fence, her voice low and steady, telling him about the drills, the wall climb, the recruits who still couldn't tie their boots right. Gradually, Valor's breathing slowed. His ears relaxed. "Good boy, that's it, just a little longer." When she finally stood to leave, Valor didn't follow her to the gate. He sat in the center of the run, watching her go with dark, intelligent eyes. Maya made it halfway across the yard before the first tears came. Chapter 5. The base chapel was empty at 1400 hours. Maya sat in the back pew, hands folded, staring at the plain wooden cross above the altar. She wasn't particularly religious, but the silence here was clean, untouchable. The door opened behind her. Staff Sergeant. Maya turned. Captain Ellison stood in the aisle. A logistics officer Maya knew only by reputation. Fair, methodical, someone who followed the rules because they made sense, not because they were easy. Captain. Ellison sat 2 pews ahead, angled so they could speak without formality. I heard about Commander Harmon's order. Maya said nothing. I also heard you filed a complaint with JAG. Yes, ma'am. Ellison nodded slowly. You should know that Harmon's been flagged before. 3 complaints in 2 years, all related to what he calls corrective leadership. None of them stuck. Maya's stomach tightened. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to be prepared. Harmon has allies, people who think the same way he does. Ellison met her eyes. But he also has people watching him now, including me. What do you need from me? Keep doing exactly what you're doing. Follow protocol. Document everything. Don't give him ammunition. And valor. Ellison's expression softened. I'm working on it, but these things take time. Maya wanted to say that valor didn't have time, that every hour in that kennel was pulling him further from the stability they'd built together, but she just nodded. Thank you, ma'am. Ellison stood. One more thing. You're not alone in this. Remember that. She left without waiting for a response. Maya sat in the silence for another 20 minutes, trying to believe it. Chapter 6. 3 days later, the situation escalated. Maya was running recruits through hand-to-hand combat drills when Commander Harmon appeared at the edge of the training mat. He didn't announce himself, just stood there, arms crossed, watching. The recruits noticed. Their focus wavered. Eyes on me, Maya snapped. Harmon doesn't grade you, I do. It was a small defiance, but in front of 70 witnesses, it landed. Harmon's jaw tightened. When the drill ended, he approached. A word, Staff Sergeant. They walked 20 yards from the group. Harmon kept his voice low, but his fury was barely controlled. You will not undermine my authority in front of enlisted personnel. I didn't undermine anything. Sir, I kept them focused on, you referred to me by rank without my title. That's insubordination. Maya blinked. Sir, and your animal is still causing disruption. Kennel staff report he's aggressive. That's a lie. The words came out before Maya could stop them. Harmon's expression shifted into something cold and satisfied. Excuse me? Sir, valor has never shown aggression. Corporal Cross can confirm. Corporal Cross has been relieved of kennel duty as of this morning. Maya's blood went cold. Effective immediately, your service dog will be evaluated by base veterinary for behavioral issues. If he's deemed a threat, he'll be discharged from service. You can't, I can, and I will. Harmon stepped closer. Unless you'd like to resign your complaint and accept reassignment, your choice, Staff Sergeant. Maya stared at him. The weight of 200 eyes pressed against her back. I'm not withdrawing my complaint, sir. Harmon smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Then I'll see you at the tribunal. He walked away, boots striking the ground like a countdown. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Maya and valor reach those who still believe in honor. Chapter 7. The tribunal convened in a conference room on the east side of base. Grey walls, fluorescent lights. A long table where 3 officers sat with folders and pens. Maya stood at attention. Valor was not present. Commander Harmon sat to the right, flanked by his legal counsel. Captain Ellison sat in the gallery, along with a dozen other personnel who'd been called as witnesses. The presiding officer, a colonel named Vance, opened the proceedings. This tribunal has been convened to address allegations of unlawful command and retaliation. Staff Sergeant Reeves, you filed a formal complaint against Commander Harmon regarding interference with your medical accommodation. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Commander Harmon, you've counterfiled that Staff Sergeant Reeves's service animal presents a safety risk and disrupts unit cohesion. Correct? Correct, sir. Vance reviewed his notes. We'll hear testimony from both parties. Staff Sergeant, you may begin. Maya had rehearsed this. She kept her voice steady, factual. She described Valor's training, his certification, the medical documentation supporting his role. She outlined Harmon's initial order, his escalation, and the threat to have Valor discharged. Did Commander Harmon ever cite specific incidents of disruption? Vance asked. No, sir. Only general statements that service dogs lower standards. And has Valor ever displayed aggression? Never, sir. Vance turned to Harmon. Commander, your evidence? Harmon presented a report from a kennel staff member Maya didn't recognize. Someone transferred in after Cross was reassigned. The report claimed Valor had growled at personnel and refused commands. It was fabricated. Maya knew it instantly, but proving it was another matter. I'd like to call Corporal Cross as a witness, Maya said. Corporal Cross is no longer assigned to this base, Harmon's counsel interjected. He was transferred to Fort Hood 2 days ago. Convenient, Vance frowned. We'll note that for the record. He looked at Maya. Do you have other witnesses? Private Davis, Corporal Kim, Lieutenant Alvarez, all observed Valor's behavior during joint operations. One by one, they testified. Every account was the same. Valor was disciplined, focused, and never a threat. But Harmon had rank and precedent, and 3 officers at that table who valued order above all else. When the session adjourned, Vance gave his ruling. This tribunal finds insufficient evidence of retaliation. However, given conflicting reports on the service animal's behavior, we're ordering a 30-day evaluation period. Valor will remain in kennel custody. If no incidents occur, he'll be returned to Staff Sergeant Reeves' care. Maya felt the floor tilt. Sir, 30 days without... The ruling stands. Dismissed. Chapter 8. Maya didn't remember walking back to her quarters. She sat on her bunk, staring at Valor's empty crate, and felt the edges of her mind start to fray. 30 days. She'd barely made it 3. The knock on her door came at 1900 hours. Captain Ellison stepped inside, followed by 2 people Maya didn't recognize. One wore a Pentagon insignia. The other was civilian, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a briefcase. Staff Sergeant Reeves. This is Colonel Marcus from the Pentagon's Office of Accountability, and Dr. Helen Cray, a military psychologist and advocate for service members with PTSD. Maya stood. Ma'am, sir. Colonel Marcus spoke first. We've been monitoring your case, Staff Sergeant. What happened in that tribunal was a miscarriage of protocol. Sir, Commander Harmon has been under investigation for 3 months. Your complaint was the catalyst we needed. He opened a folder. 16 service members have filed similar grievances: harassment, retaliation, abuse of authority. Maya's breath caught. Dr. Cray stepped forward. We're here to reverse the tribunal's ruling. Effective immediately, Valor is returned to your care. Commander Harmon is suspended pending full investigation. The room went silent. What about the 30-day evaluation? Maya asked. Overturned. The Pentagon recognizes service dogs as essential medical equipment. Any attempt to remove one without documented cause is a violation of federal law. Colonel Marcus met her eyes. You stood your ground, Staff Sergeant. That took courage. Now we're standing with you. Chapter 9. The next morning, Maya walked to the kennel with Captain Ellison at her side. Corporal Cross had been reinstated overnight. He was waiting outside Valor's run with a leash and a tired smile. He knew you were coming, Cross said. Started pacing 10 minutes ago. Maya opened the gate. Valor didn't rush. He walked to her calmly, sat at her feet, and looked up with eyes that held no resentment, only trust. She knelt and wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his fur. Good boy. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Valor leaned into her, tail wagging slowly. When she finally stood, Colonel Marcus was there. With him were a dozen reporters, cameras, and a public affairs officer. Staff Sergeant Reeves, the Pentagon would like to present you with the Meritorious Service Medal for your advocacy and courage in defending service members' rights. The medal ceremony was brief, formal, but when Marcus pinned the ribbon to her chest, the applause from the assembled soldiers was thunderous. Commander Harmon was not present. He'd been reassigned to a desk position pending court-martial. That afternoon, new base-wide orders were issued. All service dogs were to be treated as medical equipment, protected under federal law, with zero tolerance for interference. Maya returned to teaching. Valor returned to her side, and when the nightmares came, he was there, steady, silent, and unwavering. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of a commander tried to shoot her service dog. The Pentagon's response that day left the whole base silent. See you in the next one.